Y'all thought the divorce settlement between Richard Lawson and Tina Knowles was all wrapped up and done? Think again, something seriously hot is bubbling up from the settlement that's got everyone talking. Here's the kicker. The court has prohibited Richard Lawson from speaking about Beyoncé. But have you ever wondered why they would do that? Richard Lawson is now spilling the tea, claiming he's got tapes and call recordings of Beyoncé talking to her mother, Tina Knowles, about some seriously messy Hollywood drama. What could these conversations be about? Knowing Beyoncé, it could be anything from industry secrets to personal scandals. And with spy eyes like ours, the possibilities are endless. Let's dive deep into this mess because there's a lot more to uncover. We're going to explore these tapes, the call recordings, and what exactly went down in this divorce settlement. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single detail. Buckle up because we're just getting started. Yo, it's official. Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson are denazo. Yep, the divorce papers are signed, sealed, and delivered. Now, on the surface, it's looking like they ended things all peaceful and grown up. But hold up, sis. Don't let that fool you. The streets are buzzing and the tea is piping hot. Folks are saying this breakup was anything but smooth, and there was some major drama brewing behind the scenes before Tina even pulled the trigger on that divorce. Word on the curb is that Richard was actually ready to be the one to file because he just couldn't take it anymore. But Tina beat him to the punch, and honey, it's got everyone wondering, what did Tina do to have Richard so fed up? And here's the real kicker. Whispers are going around that these two might have been creeping around while Tina was still hitched to Beyoncé's daddy, Matthew Knowles. Ooh, child. Let's dive into this mess. When we first got wind last year that Tina and Richard were heading for Splitsville, fans were shook. I mean, these two were supposed to be endgame, right? That fairy tale kind of love that just lasts forever.
We became friends and had hung out, and I supported her because she was going through a tough time with the divorce and the remarriage of her previous husband. And we just took our time, we became friends, we hung out, we traveled, and little by little, all the things that were naturally connected.
But as we started piecing things together, those red flags were harder to ignore. The vibe between them wasn't as perfect as they made it seem, and now we're all side-eyeing those "we've been just friends for 30 years" claims. Sounds a little too convenient, don't you think? Oh, chill, the tea is piping hot with this one. So, word on the street is Tina and Richard were out here living foul, even while she was still hitched to Matthew Knowles and Richard was tied down with somebody else. Now, Tina and Matthew might have been married for a good 30 years, but let's not get it twisted. Those 3 decades were anything but blissful. Matthew was allegedly running wild, cheating on Tina every chance he got, sliding in with any woman who would entertain him. Sis, the rumors say he just couldn't keep it in his pants for the majority of their marriage. Now, fast forward to about a year after Tina and Matthew tied the knot, Tina, already pregnant with Beyoncé's daddy, decided to swing by her BFF, Gwen's spot. And guess who she bumped into? None other than Gwen's older brother, Richard Lawson. And girl, Richard was sprung on Tina from day one, baby bump and all. He wasn't fazed that she was carrying another man's child because he was convinced it was love at first sight. But here's the kicker. Richard was already married with a whole daughter, yet he was still trying to get at Tina, but Tina claimed she wasn't about that life and supposedly hit him with the friend zone real quick. But hold up, Tina might not have been keeping it all the way real. According to Beyoncé's former vocal coach, David Brewer, there was a whole lot more going on behind closed doors. David spilled that Tina and Richard were allegedly getting it in while she was still with Matthew. And speaking of Matthew, David's tell-all book claims their marriage was on the rocks back then because Matthew was supposedly caught up in some illegal substances. In his tell-all book, he wrote, "Turns out he had escalated to stronger drugs and even stranger behaviors. Rumor had it that drugs long since stopped satisfying his thirst and had turned to addiction." David spilled some serious tea, claiming it was Matthew's bad habits that eventually pushed Tina into the arms of none other than Richard Lawson. According to David, Tina wasn't just sitting around taking Matthew's mess. She started stepping out on him with Richard, and it wasn't just a one-time thing. David wrote, "I soon discovered that although unhappily married, CelebTea was not suffering all by herself, going over to the main house to retrieve my keyboard. One afternoon, I happened upon CelebTea kissing a man. I recognized him immediately, Richard Lawson, a famous actor. The startled CelebTea had no choice but to introduce me. Talk about awkward. She was supposed to be in her salon. I extended my hand to Richard, telling him how much I admired his work. He nodded. "It's a pleasure," he said after letting him out of the house. Celestine turned. "Richard is my cousin," she said. "He's on that stuff." So she wasn't entirely truthful about who Richard was in her life, huh? Looks like they hooked up while both were still very much married. And let's be real, most relationships that start off as affairs, they hardly ever make it. But somehow, these two made it work. After Tina finally kicked Matthew to the curb for not just one, but two secret love children, she still wasn't ready to jump right into Richard's arms. She was still big mad about how dirty Matthew did her.
My husband is getting married. Now, this is my family. My ex-husband is my family. So I'm just very, I don't want to get back into that at all. That's not what I want, but still, it still hurts a little bit, right? It still blows to your ego.
But Richard, being the smooth operator he is, stood by her through it all. Eventually, they fell in love, got their happy ending, and even got the kid's stamp of approval. Richard said, "I called her children and asked for her hand in marriage from them. I thought that was important because I knew that it didn't stand a chance unless they were on board. I was fortunate enough that they were completely on board and just over the top excited about it." Well, they seemed to be living that fairy tale life for a minute, but honey, don't get it twisted. There were some glaring red flags that fans might have missed at first. For starters, Tina kept her ex Matthew Knowles' last name even after marrying Richard. Now, some folks thought she was holding on to Knowles because it's tied to her superstar daughters, but it had fans side-eyeing her commitment to her new hubby. Beyoncé might have added Carter to her name when she married Jay-Z, but Tina was clutching onto Knowles like it was her security blanket. Some fans thought it was a low-key dig at Richard, but he seemed to let it slide. Maybe he was just grateful she finally gave him a shot and didn't want to rock the boat. But it wasn't long before the chatter got louder about Tina's behavior toward Richard. Like, there was this viral interview where Tina seemed to dismiss Richard's feelings just to make her point.
And I wanted, I prayed for the type of man I wanted, and I got pretty much that. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. But, he has a lot of the qualities. No. He has a lot of the qualities that I love.
Sis, Richard was looking heartbroken. There were plenty of ways she could have played that moment sweetly, but she didn't. It was clear Richard was feeling some type of way, and if that wasn't enough, Tina even threw shade at him and their situation on Instagram, saying, "I'm careful not to confuse excellence with perfection. Excellence I can reach, for perfection is God's business." She also dropped a shade-filled caption saying, "I came across this quote this morning. I could not agree more with Michael J. Fox. I believe any human being who thinks that they are perfect or someone else could be perfect is delusional. I believe that only God is perfect." Now, we love Mama Tina, but that was definitely a low-key dig at her hubby. So when the tea spilled about their marriage being on the rocks, fans started piecing together that maybe Richard was fed up with Tina's treatment, which led him to get out. Now, this is all just social media chatter and speculation, but folks are convinced this is what went down. The divorce wrapped up a few days ago, and let's just say it wasn't exactly the amicable split everyone was expecting. According to reports, Tina was awarded the right to keep a property in Los Angeles and a separate property in Texas, as well all furniture, furnishings, appliances, artwork, and personal effects at both locations. She also gets all earnings acquired since their date of separation and creative works generated during their time together. She also gets to keep a 2018 Tesla, a 2020 Bentley, the Matriarch book deal with Penguin Random House, and a 1% interest in Kirby Beauty Management LLC. Richard was also awarded a 2021 Cadillac Escalade, the right to all earnings acquired since their date of separation, funds acquired by Richard Lawson Studios, Inc., his SAG pension plan royalties, creative works made during their union, and personal belongings, including clothing and jewelry. Tina also made sure to protect her kids and grandkids because, according to reports, the former couple also agreed to a non-disparagement agreement in which they acknowledged their intent to resolve all issues in their dissolution amicably by agreeing to agree on any statements made about their divorce mutually, and will not speak ill about their children, grandchildren, and their spouses. Now, we don't know if this is true because it could just be a payout for one of Richard's belongings that Tina wanted to keep in the divorce, so it's kind of up in the air. Fans have been all over social media weighing in with their thoughts, saying things like, behind every face is a personality, and based on that interview video of Tina insulting Richard like that, it probably was a wrap from that point. The way she talked about him and their union came off as if she never really wanted him, but settled for him. If she acts like that in public, I can't imagine how she is when the cameras are off. And just because you knew the person before doesn't mean it's going to work when you finally get together. Things change and people change over time. But do y'all think Tina was really disrespectful to Richard, or are fans just reaching? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't miss the next video.